This is the world now. We start off with a story of Rebecca Cheptegei. Thousands of mourners turned out in eastern Uganda for the funeral of Olympic marathon runner Rebecca Cheptegei, who was set ablaze by her former boyfriend and later died. Recall that Dixon Ndiama attacked her outside her home in neighboring northwest Kenya, close to where she trained. The 33-year-old killing and its brutal nature left her family distraught and shocked many others across the world. Among those at the funeral ceremony in a school field in Buko were her fellow athletes wearing black T-shirts with the slogan, "Say no to gender-based violence." Earlier, with her coffin on display and draped in the Ugandan flag, local leaders held a memorial service. They observed a moment of silence and gave a standing ovation as they paid their respects to the late athlete. Was staying in Africa, where a military court in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has sentenced 37 persons to death, including 3 United States citizens, on charges of taking part in a failed coup in May. The court president, Freddie Ehume, said in a verdict that the court pronounced the harshest sentence for various offenses bordering on criminal association, attack, and terrorism. The defendants have 5 days to appeal the verdict, as 14 people were acquitted in the trial, which opened in June. A lawyer who defended the 6 foreigners argued that he disputed whether the death penalty could currently be imposed in the Democratic Republic of Congo, despite its reinstatement this year. Recall that the country is going through an economic crisis that has seen civil servants go unpaid for almost 1 year, after its oil exports were affected by a damaged pipeline amid the civil war in neighboring Sudan. And over now to Sudan, where South Sudan's government has announced it is postponing a long-delayed general elections until December 2026. This is the second time the country is postponing elections and extending a transitional period that started in February 2020. The presidency announced the extension of the country's transitional period by 2 years, as well as postponing elections, which were initially scheduled for December 2024 to December 2022, 2026. The government said it needed more time to complete processes such as a census, the drafting of a permanent constitution, and the registration of political parties before an election could be held. Cabinet Affairs Minister Martin Ella Lumuru said the extension followed recommendations from both electoral institutions and the security sector. And still in Sudan, the absence of education for nearly 2 years has inspired a group of young volunteers in the Nim camp for displaced persons in East Darfur to reopen the camp school to receive students. This is an attempt to ease the absence of education for the students. According to specialists, schools in Sudan face many obstacles, including the lack of school supplies, along with a deteriorating economic situation for families in Darfur. Darfur's displacement camps contain thousands of school-aged children, but most of them are deprived of education and face severe food shortages. These voluntary initiatives to return children to schools are an attempt to spread hope in souls tired of the scourge of the ongoing war between the army and the Rapid Support Force, which further deprives children of their right to education. And still in Africa, the Chinese government has assured of adequate implementation of the over 13 Memoranda of Understanding signed during the recently concluded Forum of China-Africa Cooperation. The Chinese ambassador to Nigeria gave this assurance in Abuja following the FOCAC meeting. Moyo Thomas tells us more in this report.
President Tinubu's official visits to China is of great significance in advancing China-Nigeria relations.
The two sides agreed to firmly support each other.
Building on the gains of this visit, the Chinese ambassador says there are action plans in place to ensure proper implementation of the already signed MOUs. This media briefing by the embassy is to emphasize the need to work on implementation as soon as possible.
And widespread resonance. The international community highly praised the summit, believing that the FOCAC has become an important platform for the Chinese and African people to achieve mutual benefit and win-win results. And practice the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence.
Other speakers charged Nigeria to tighten its end of the deal in order to drive the process.
The foundation for China's continuous development is disciplined and faithful implementation of policies, agreement, MOUs. Without it, you get nowhere. So we must get out of the shadow of summit glamour, summit gleams, and get right down to the real work of engaging the process. And here we have a very well-established mechanism, the intergovernmental process.
From colonial times to post-colonial time, Africa has been a victim of perpetual neo-colonization and imperialism. And that is why the coming of China is actually making a shift and making a new path. And that particular path is for what? Is for collective common prosperity between the African people and the Chinese people. And the development, the Global Development Initiative is a driver, is one key instrument that will justify that particular mutual cooperation and win-win cooperation between China and Africa.
Bilateral trade relations between Nigeria and China in 2023 rose to over $23 billion. This is as China announced plans to increase the trade balance by patronizing Nigeria more in agricultural products, especially peanuts. China says as it is planning to increase the import of peanuts from Nigeria to China, it is also planning to expand production of this product in Nigeria in order not to leave Nigeria dry. Moya Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.
We would interrupt our program lineup now as we cross over to Edo State.